Okay, I think we're live. I think that's just the way I'm going to start my shows from now on, because I'm like so surprised. Oh, it's working. Oh, actually, I need to wait until we get a couple people saying that they're here, they're liking it, before I actually start talking, because it is what it is. I just want to make sure that we're connected, and I don't feel like checking my phone. Ah, Norma. Hey, Norma from North Mississippi. Excellent. Glad. That means I'm connected. Hopefully it means you can hear me too. Of course, it's coming through a few times, so let's see. Thumbs up. Excellent. That means we're getting through. Hopefully the video's clear. I turned everything off my Wi-Fi again. For those of you who've been watching since the first one I did last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, I'm just baffled that technology is still working, since I had such an issue with it for quite a while. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Hey, Barbara, how are you? Oh, good. And you were here the other day, so it still sounds great. Excellent. Hi, Kathleen. Good to see you. Oh, glad people are checking in. Sue from Canada. Excellent, excellent. Everyone's getting all over. Lee from Australia. Excellent. There's a couple others from Australia. Chris, I was wondering if you're going to make it there. Oh, excellent. Excellent. You're all tuning in for our After Hours with Lisa. And as promised, I have a glass of wine because my day is over, and this is where I relax and I do my stitch artist or my customizing, my personal stuff. This is what I work on. So you guys get me in casual mode, working at the computer. Shreveport, the home of your first traveling experience. Yes, excellent. Hey, Valerie. The very first time I did a hands-on embroidery class was in Shreveport, and they completely blew my socks off. Didn't just knock them off, blew them off. So I need to get back to Shreveport. That was a fun location. Oh, Northwest Arkansas, Algonquin, Illinois. Oh, we're checking in from all over the place. I'm going to set up a poll just to make sure. I seem to be getting good results from doing a Monday night. Kathleen's in bed? What time is it? Kathleen, where are you from? I guess it's 6 o'clock, so it's later other places. I'm just thinking, wow, usually I'm an early to bed person. So from British Columbia, Canada. I digress. End of the day, so Lisa gets squirrel often. I was thinking I was wondering if Monday nights work for people, since we're having about, I don't know how many extra are going to be tuning into this. I don't see an actual number. I just see the reactions and comments coming through. But hopefully Monday night works for people, because I'd like to do 2 a week. That's what the plan is, knock on wood. One on Stitch Artist and one on the customizing programs. Oh, you made off popcorn for everyone. Sue's got the popcorn. Excellent. Excellent. So we're doing 2 of them. I'd like to spread them out just so I don't get too crazy. So I was thinking from Trinidad, as in island Trinidad, like sunshine. We had sunshine today in Colorado. It was a gorgeous day. I'm kind of nervous to see what the upcoming weather's like, because I'm watching the storms come in from Alaska. They kind of brew over here, and then they come in, and either they putter out to nothing, or we get 3 feet of snow. So you never know. March and April are usually our snowiest months, and they have not proved us wrong this time. So anyway, we'll see if this works out on Mondays. Well, with the time, we'll see what happens. Anyway. Sandy from South Carolina. Okay, everyone's still checking in. Well, just remember, as I'm going through this, I feel I am all here, all by myself, me and the bee, working in the sewing room. So with you guys making posts or giving thumbs up or some sort of emoji type thing or asking a question, that lets me know there's actually someone listening on the other end. I know I can get a little overwhelming. So, Nikki. Hopefully the PPQ are doing okay. Nikki was at one of our events in Frisco. So, the PPQ. Okay, Red Rocks for Easter Sunday is tradition. Yes, it really is snow at Red Rocks, and very hot here these days, very draining in Trinidad. Oh, Lombard, Illinois, looking forward to your fun Stitch Artist session. Okay, well, I guess Christine's bringing me into a gear here. So I will try and keep an eye on the comments. But as mentioned, this session is on Stitch Artist. And I wanted to give like a teaser information on what it is that we're going to be talking about. And it's really how to create or customize your own knockdown stitching, which also leads into how to do sketch designs. And so it's kind of all over the place because Enthusiast is the one that has the one button click poof knockdown stitch. And that's great for keeping, and when I say knockdown, that is a patented term by Embrilliance, and we've been doing knockdown for years, and we haven't called it knockdown, but we've been creating flattening stitches for years. This is nothing new. I mean, 25 years ago, I created a shape, put a light density fill, took out the underlay, and it flattened the nap of the stitches. What's unique to the Embrilliance function and why it's a patented function is because it basically looks at your design on your screen, draws an outline around it, and puts a flattening fill in it. Poof, one click, done. I mean, that is knockdown. That is Embrilliance patented that whole function type thing. Click, poof, done. It's absolutely fabulous, and we love knockdown stitching. But I'm going to talk about it as far as how you could create your own knockdown stitching or your own sketch designs, because what are sketch designs? They're basically objects that have a light density fill in them. So that's what today's session is going to be about. So let me see if I can, they closed my little window here. Let's see if I can switch over to that one there, and possibly this one here. Nope, that made that big. Okay, I got to get my application here. Shoot. Current application. Oh, there you go. Okay, so I got to get rid of this guy. How did he move over here? They give me these little helpful things in this broadcast thing, and it used to be on this screen, but now it's on this screen. How did that happen? I don't understand. Okay, anyway. As I was saying with the knockdown stitching, basically how it works. And I'm going to show you the Enthusiast function so that you can get an idea of how I would do this without Enthusiast. Do it the hard way. And it's not hard, it's just it's using just Stitch Artist. Okay, so here's my design. I go to my utility menu, I choose add knockdown stitching, and it places a light density fill around my shape. And I have to remember, you can't see me pointing at the screen like this. But it's a light density fill that stitches first. So this knockdown basically flattens the stitches. So if you're stitching like on Minky or a towel or a really poofy velour or something that you want to flatten, knockdown is fantastic. Now, when this object here, first of all, it's a design. If you click on your disclosure triangle, it is here at the top and it's set to my underlay and it stitches first. Now, in Essentials, you'll hear me mention many times that when you have multiple designs and they overlap each other, that Essentials removes hidden stitches underneath it automatically. Well, Knockdown is, even though it's its own design here at the top, when it's set by Enthusiast, remove hidden stitches doesn't work. Okay, it's not going to touch this. It's kind of like setting it as the applique placement and the tack down that you'll know that that's how you make sure that your stitches don't get removed from applique designs. Okay, so the underlay stitching here that is created by Enthusiast, that's not going to be removed by hidden stitches, even though it's a separate design that is overlapped by the other design. The key point is, and the reason it's not, is because this is a low density fill stitch. There's not enough stitches in it to create a bulletproof design. The only way that it would create a bulletproof design is if the original design was bulletproof to begin with. So if it was super dense, then you added an underlay underneath that super dense design, that's going to cause a problem. And it's still not going to remove the hidden stitches from it. super dense designs, that's a whole other issue. Maybe I'll do a session sometime on density repair kit, but super dense designs, that's the knockdown stitching basically is what I'm saying. You don't have to worry about extra stitches. Okay. It's just not an issue. Okay. Yes, I started already, but, and you're here. Thanks. Great to see you, Kathy. And you can always just rewind and catch up on the little bit. But what I was basically saying is that this shape is what the software creates automatically in Enthusiast. Now, if you didn't have Enthusiast, so I'm going to delete this. Select it, hit the delete key, which is how you delete anything in the program. Select it, hit the delete key. If you want to select a certain color, you click on the color and it will delete out all that entire color. So just delete stuff, select the delete, okay? If you don't have Enthusiast and you wanted to create a knockdown stitch, first of all, this is now my Sue tip, because I think Sue is the one that explained to me how to do this. I'm going to Command C, and I'm going to put a comment in here, Command V. Boom. This is the link that I just added to the comments to the video on how to draw with points in StitchArtist. Okay. I'm not teaching you guys how to draw. Okay. That's something you have to practice. It gets easier with time, or you can just be like me and let it go. Except that you're going to draw blobs and it's okay. You can always edit them later. Okay. Sue, I think you were the one that told me I can copy and paste my comments here. So that's what I'm excited that I know how to do that now. Okay, so I'm going to draw with points. Let me go into my StitchArtist. And I don't want to cause any confusion here, so we're going to go into level 2. 1, 2. So this is level 2. Well, you can do this in level 1. I just want to be in level 2 so I don't have to keep switching all over the place, and some of the things I want to show is in level 2. But this is a level 1 feature. Okay. Thanks, Sue. Awesome. Let me see. Kaboom. All right, so draw with points. Click on the draw with points tool, and basically I'm going to click around my shape. Oh, so lovely. To create a lovely blob that sort of goes around here. You can be as accurate as you want, but when I show you when I finish this, bum, 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 right click to end, and then I'm going to click on the closed shape so that we have a blob. Once you have your shape, remember, whenever you're done drawing, you right click to end, and this little red button here is how to close your shape. Once you have your shape on the screen, this is where you can move your nodes around. And if you have 5,000 of them, it's completely uneditable, and it just is too much work to move every single individual one around. But if you only have a few, you can move them around so that you can reshape your image. This is probably, if I was doing this by hand or for myself, this has more nodes than I would normally do on my own, but people get a little crazy because they think that it should look exact. So I have more nodes here. So I have my shape. Now, if you look at your object list here, the design is object number 1 or design number 1. And what I just created got put at the end of my object list. Can you see that here? Design 1 is stitching, and then this blob is going to stitch, which isn't how we want it, because we want, this blob is going to have fill stitches in it, right? And that fill stitches, just like the underlay from Knockdown, it needs to stitch first. So I'm going to right click on this design and say move first, so that now my design, which is a blob, which doesn't have stitches yet, but it's already number 1 in the list. Hopefully that's making sense, guys. Paying attention to digitizing in software, you have to do lots of multitasking, and most of us should be rather good at multitasking. So I need to pay attention to what's going on in my hoop, as well as pay attention to what's going on in my object list. So I have my object here, my line. I'm going to select it, and now I have to choose what type of stitch do I want to go into this. I'm going to choose my fill stitch because that's what the knockdown stitching is. Now, when you go to your fill stitch in your properties pane, it has filled it with stitches starting at your green and stopping at the red, and it has the default settings. So it's density of 4 points. That's a fill stitch. That's if you wanted this to be a solid blob. So we don't want it to be solid. We want it to be open. So I'm going to move my density all the way up to 15. Now I will tell you, I think that the knockdown stitching default density is, I think it's 12. Now points, someone had asked this and sent me a message. 1 point is 0.1 millimeters. Okay. So when you have 15 points, density, that is 1.5 millimeters. And before I go too far, Danielle, you must have missed the part. I said I'm pretending that I don't have enthusiast. That's why I redrew this. Okay, so we have people asking that just have stitch artists that want to know how to create knockdown stitching in StitchArtist. Okay, yes, I could have if I did just use enthusiast, and that shape created can be done other things with, but I wanted to show how to create your own, because sometimes the software does a great job of creating an outline. But do you see how many nodes I have here? Keep that in mind, how few nodes, and maybe I'll remember to bring up the enthusiast one again, and you'll see all the little nodes, which kind of make it hard to edit. Okay, so first step, change your density to a low density point. Now let me zoom in so that we can actually see. And with my stitch, even with the stitches 3Ds turned on, you can actually see that there's underlay stitching here. So even though I have changed my fill stitch to be a low density, so it's 1.5 millimeters apart, that's what each row of stitches is, I have my underlay is still turned on. It's still trying to put some stabilization underneath there. And Knockdown doesn't need underlay. It doesn't have underlay. It's just a flattening stitch. So I'm going to go to my underlay properties, which is where my mouse cursor is in my properties pane. Nice thing about the software is you put your mouse cursor on a button and it says what the button does. This one says adjust the underlay. I think I'll use that. So if I click on this and I uncheck my contour, and I uncheck my perpendicular, you can sort of see, let me zoom in and let you look. Can you see there's only running stitches going across my design? Now, this is basically a automatically created underlay flattening stitch. Okay, we're step 1. Now digitizing, when you have enthusiast, you don't have any of these controls. So basically what I'm saying is you click, poof, done, it stitches the way it wants to stitch. When you create your own underlay or you adjust your underlay settings, not only can you change the density, so if you want a heavier density underlay, you go to your little density here and you change it from 12 to maybe 1. It's going to be a lot denser. Or maybe change it to a motif filler, something else. Or change it to a lighter density. Okay. The other thing that you can change is how it starts and stops. Okay. Your start and your stop. Those of you in the StitchArtist Digitizing Fans group, make sure you watch the units videos. There's one on the snowman that shows you what artifacts are and how to move your starts and stops around. But your start is your green bow tie and your stop is your red bow tie. So as I have my fill stitch and it's going, this is the angle that's set. That's set by this little yellow barbell thing. So it's going to start at this point. Let's run the sewing simulator so you can actually watch what's going to start. This is color number 1. It starts at that starting point. It goes up, it fills down, it goes down, and it starts filling all the way back up because that's what we told it to do. And just because we haven't told it to do anything, that doesn't mean we said exactly what it was supposed to do. So what can I change on this? I'm going to move my start up to the top of the design and move my stop down to the bottom of the design. First of all, what this can do when you're doing this, because my angle is going in this direction, it will change how the design fills in. Now it's had to, where did it start? It was here. And it figured out that it needed to go down to that bottom doohickey guy here and fill this in first. You know, these are things that, it's because this is a blob shape. And have you ever done that it's a project or a quiz in grammar school where you have to draw a shape without going over the lines, repeating itself, and not picking your pencil off the paper. That's pretty much how the software has to fill a shape. Now, when a shape is solid, like, this is a solid shape. When a shape is very simple, like there's no loop-de-loops, and you have a start and a stop at the bottom and at the top, it will start here at the bottom and fill straight up till the stop. There's no detours it needs to take. Well, that's easy when you have a blobby shape that has no ins and outs, but this design has ins and outs. It has ups and downs. So you're never going to get a complete fill unless you change. I mean, you can try maybe switching the angle here and changing your stitches. So it goes from there and move this, not move the line. I need to move my little start guy over to here. Let's see what that does. Sewing simulator. Bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba. Whoops. It goes to the top and it's going to fill down to the bottom. Well, it didn't need to do that guy. It did it a little differently. So sometimes you can hide these things. Sometimes there's just no choice. It's going to have to do what it has to do. But moving your stitch angle around, moving your starts and stops around, that can change your entry and exit points. Here we go. Let me go into this guy, select this one, hit the delete key because he's bugging me. Now, the nice thing about reshaping or drawing your own, as I mentioned, and let me go and just move this guy. Let me hide him so we don't have to look at him anymore. Okay, so I'm going to select him and I'm going to lock him and hide him so that he's there, but we don't see him. Now, theoretically, if I go to the utility menu and say add knockdown stitching, it saw it anyway. Darn. Let me go and, hold on. Let me hit Control X. No, Command X because I'm on Mac. That deletes him. Utility, add knockdown stitching, Command V, and now he's hidden. Okay. This was our original knockdown created by the enthusiast. Now, I can try and reshape this if I wanted to, but you see those 10,000 little nodes around here? In order to reshape it, you have to move each individual one, and that's just a pain in the butt. Now, one thing that you can do, say you wanted to get rid of this loop, this dip thing here, so that it flattened that part out, you could use your lasso to select those, let's go here. Select those nodes, hit the delete key on your keyboard, and that will reshape. So if that's the type of reshaping you're looking for, just selecting and deleting, that's great. But if you're trying to do any sort of editing, trying to edit this shape from Enthusiast that was created by the automatic, there's too much data here. It did it. It's perfect. It's beautiful for click, poof, done. But if you wanted to actually do something with it afterwards, it's not too much fun. Hopefully that all makes sense to you guys. I personally would rather edit this shape that only has those few nodes on it than that crazy one that we did. Is you guys still here? Who's angry at me? Someone gave me an angry comment. Hopefully that was an oops. I don't think I've done anything to piss anybody off yet. Night is still young, but I haven't done it yet. Did that make sense? Possibly? Maybe? Okay. Moving on. I'm not going to close him. I'm just going to go to a different design. Because when I said that, when I mentioned creating your own knockdown, it basically, the key is drawing your shape. And I gave you the link to the video so you can learn how to draw with shapes. Add a fill. Set the density to a high density. 12 points is the built-in knockdown that Enthusiast does, but you can put it to any value you want. And turning off your underlay. How hard is that? Easy, okay? So now when you talk about designs that have no underlay, that usually can lead into sketch designs, because the big part about digitizing, and now someone's sad. Goodness gracious, guys. I'm getting angry people, sad people. Oh, sorry. I'll have to try and figure out what I did. Sketch designs. They're basically the same type of a design type as an underlay, meaning that they have a low density and they have no underlay because you can't see the grid work underneath. So if you have like these lovely flowers I have here, I brought in a graphic and created my flower with a magic wand. If I wanted to turn this daisy flower into a sketch design, hi Margie, I'm glad you're happy. I don't know what I did. Hopefully it's an oops. Okay, so to turn this into a sketch design, first of all, if you look at my object pane here, I have each petal is its own object. Okay, so I need to set this petal to be a sketch fill. Now there's a couple, it's not very difficult. All I have to do is go to my fill stitch here, fill property. It remembered what I had before. Now under the fill properties, I wanted to show you, first of all, in level 1, and I'm going to go back there. Let me go back to level 1. Doom, doom, doom. Boom. Let's go to fill. In level 1, you have just a basic, you don't have the travel, you have travel edge, but you don't have a gradient fill and you don't have curved fills. So this is level 1. Let me do this petal in level 1 and then I'll do the next petal in level 2. Okay. When you are setting your sketch or your fill for this little, we're all happy, keep going. Oh, you guys are making my day. I'm thinking it was an oops. You know, it's really easy to hit the wrong emoji on your gizmo. Otherwise, we'll figure out who they are and what they're unhappy about. All right. Basically, just like I did for the knockdown stitching, I assigned my fill to this little shape here. Now, because my start and stop are located at the same spots, that's where it's going to start stitching, and it has to go up and then go down and fill back up so that it exits right here. That's how we're going to practice drawing line objects and fill them up using a stitch angle. So the first thing to do, that's why you have this line going from top to bottom, because in order for it to start stitching here, this green bow tie, in order to start at this point and fill this shape, it has to go up to the top here and then come down and then fill back up to this section right here. So first thing I need to do is I'm going to move my start, whoops, not the node. I'm going to move my stop down here to the bottom. I'm going to move my start up here to the top. You see it kind of went wonky looking here. Maybe I'll move this guy over. Whoopsie. Oh, maybe too much wine, huh? Put it down here like that. Now, when you have this line going through the top, and I wonder why it did that. Maybe move the start to the bottom. And move this guy up to the top. There we go. That's better. Because, okay, the other thing, let me turn this back to artwork. Your object here. I don't know if you can see it on your screen. If you're watching on a phone, you probably can't. But when you have a closed object, you have a red dot. That red dot shows you where the last point that someone made, where that's a closing point. Okay. So if you were to open this shape at this point, that's where it would separate. So if I click on my little open button here and I now go and whoops. Yeah. Hold on. When I open it at that point, that's where the connection is. So when you close something, that's where it's going to reopen, is at that point. Let me get rid of that so it's now shaped again. So that's why you need to kind of pay attention to where your red dots are, because that's the exit point or of the shape it wants to. So that's kind of an important point to pay attention to of your shapes. So when I go to apply my fill stitch here and I have my start and stops in two locations, I kind of want to make my start and stop go on opposite sides and pay attention to where that red dot is. Because if I move the stop to the other side where the red dot is, you get extra stitches if you don't need them. I know, I went beyond where you needed to know. I just got flustered a little bit with people not liking what I'm saying. This shape that I have here, when you set a fill stitch, the distance, the points of your density, that is the distance between each one of these rows of stitches. Okay. Now, in order to not cause a bump on your sides of your edges, those needle points are kind of staggered in just a little bit based upon whatever your stitch length is. They stagger them in so that they kind of flatten. They aren't just a hard bump. But when you're doing a sketch design, you may want your outline to actually follow that shape so that it's smooth. That is where the travel edge comes through. See this option here? You see what happens when I click that option? Do you see how nice and smooth that becomes? So that if you click off of it, it actually kind of looks like a nice clean petal that has those dots. And because your density is far apart from each other, you can, that you're not going to get the bump. But when you have a fill stitch density that's tight and filled and it's going to make a solid area and you do travel edge, it looks great in the software. When you stitch it out, you're putting those extra needle points right along that edge, which will cause a lumpy bumpy. And that's not usually what we're going for. It might be, but for the most part, for the default setting, you don't want... It's not necessary for what you see in the software to look exactly what you have on the stitch out, because it's going to look different. That's why when you see, you'll see me posting quite often and other people posting that software for digitizing is not WYSIWYG. What you see is not what you get. So you just got to keep that in mind. Now, this is a sketch fill that it has it's going to be kind of open. And if that's the look you're going for, you really want it to not look like it has a boundary or not have a solid running stitch going around the edge, you're done. You can go on to the next one. You can copy, paste, flip, mirror, or just work around the edges. However, a lot of times you want to have, this does its fill stitch of our sketch. And now you want to have a running stitch or a bean stitch of some sort go around it so it kind of gives it those stitches a home so that they kind of fit there. So while this guy is selected in my object pane, I'm going to copy him. So I'm going to go up here to my little button here at the top that says copy. And if I paste him just by hitting the paste button, it's going to throw it to the bottom of my whole object list. I'm thinking this is, the reason I'm doing this is because I want my outline to be the exact same color as this petal. And I want it to do all in one step. I want to do the sketch fill and then do an outline around it all in this pink. So basically complete each flower petal from the get-go, not do all the petals and then do all the outlines. Now, if the outline needs to be a separate color, great, but I want it to be the same color pink. So while Lisa's talking, it's still hanging out here in our, on our clipboard. If you have it hanging out here, because you copied it, and you right-click on your object at this point, you see this pop-up menu? There's three pasting options. Okay? Paste under means that when you paste the copy, it's going to put it before this selected object. Paste over means it's going to paste it right after this object. And paste replace is going to replace the object. So that's like if you fixed this petal and now you want to paste replace all the other petals because you fixed one and you like it perfectly. That's when paste replace works really well. But for this, we want to paste over so that we can add that little running stitch around right after this without having to move it up and down our object list. So while it's selected, that's what I'm going to choose. And watch what happens to my object list. Do you see where 1, 1 is on the right-hand side? Watch what happens. Paste over. You see we got 1, 2. So we have a fill stitch and a fill stitch. And you can't even tell. I mean, look, it's like right on top of the other one. But, and it's now selected because it's pasted, so it's still selected. And I'm going to go and hit the running stitch button. Oh, look at that. And I'm going to go my run properties. And I'm going to say I want this to be a bean stitch because I just want it to be a nice heavier outline. Now, the key point is, do you see where the starts and stops are on this guy? That's my fill stitch stops at this point, and now my running stitch is going to start at the bottom. Yeah. Which means, what's it going to do? It's going to jump from the top of the fill all the way to the bottom. So the first thing I need to do, or then the thing is, and there's my jump stitch. That's what was going to happen. I'm going to move it all the way up here to the top so that now it's going to stitch that one little guy happy. This one little petal. It's going to stitch the fill stitch, the running stitch, no jumps at all. Now my fill stitch, my running stitch is going to stop up here to the top. This is where we start making decisions on our stitching order. I mean, you guys, this is the life of a digitizer. Do I want it to stop at this point? Or do I want it to maybe it's going to add some more stitches because a bean stitch, that's just the way it's going to be. Start stitching at this point and then do whatever it needs to do so that it exits at this point, so that when I do this next petal, I can just have this little tiny, teeny, tiny jump here that no one's paying attention to. If you really wanted to trim and do a slow down, do a locking stitch and then trim and then move over to the next petal and guarantee those trims at the machine, leave it up here. But this little stitch, this little jump, and no one's paying attention to those. If they are, you got to have a different conversation with them, okay? If you don't have trims, your stitch out's faster. When I test out some of my designs, I listen to them. I can't have anybody else test sew my designs because that's not testing it. Testing my design makes sure that it stitches right on the fabric, but I've kind of gotten a little bit beyond that. I know how to digitize stuff so that pretty much what I see in the software, I know how to make it look so it stitches out okay at the machine. What I do is I have it stitched in the background so I can listen to it, because I want to make sure it's not doing some nasty impaling thing and making nasty noises and jumping and doing bad things. So I listen to make sure it's stitching evenly. And in this design, if I have the 5 petals, should go really fast. And there should be the one locking stitch at the beginning petal, and there'll be one locking stitch at the very last petal. And that's it. That's my preference. But that's the beautiful thing about digitizing. You are in control. If you want your jump stitches and you want the machine to trim, move your starts and stops so they're far enough away from each other. And then make sure that when you have your object here, when you go to your properties, if I move my jump stitch all the way back up here to the top, because that's where I want it to lock, make sure you go up here to the top and say tie at exit. And then it's definitely going to lock up there, but your machine's going to slow down and lock and then trim and wipe and relocate. I love to listen to designs that stitch so fast and evenly and keep the stitching going. It saves a lot of time. You don't get, nasty things don't happen. So, and plus I have a couple of machines that don't trim jumps. So I'm not paying attention to that little tiny jump that's going to happen here at the bottom. Okay. Now, remember I said that we would do a paste replace. So when I have this guy selected, let me move down and get him in the area. If I select this object, right click on it and say paste replace, it basically puts this same object in the exact same location as where the other one was. Now, it's not smart enough to know that it should rotate it. Software is great, but it's not going to do that automatically. So I will need to rotate it. However, I don't have to redo that again. I already have everything set up. I can just do a paste replace and it'll pop it right back in at the same time. Okay. Oh, Rob was saving files and stuff. Sue thinks the Sue says, yes, the stitch around the outside finishes off nicely. And Pam goes, wow. So, all right. We don't have any more unhappy faces. We'll still have one angry face. I guess someone found out that they hit an unhappy face. Or maybe we have 2 unhappy faces. I don't know. What else was I going to do? Oh, when we were talking about I got into sketch things. I said that this was a level 1 is what I showed you. Where's my fill properties? Fill properties. These are your options for level 1. So you can set your distance, your density, and you can set it to travel edge. Now, the slider bar goes to a maximum of 15. And hopefully you've watched some of my other videos that I've shown you that this number is not set in stone. I can set this to say 25, hit the enter key, and it changes. They had to put a slider so that you couldn't create designs that were insanely bulletproof, which is less than 3 points. If you set your density to less than 3 points, ooh, you're doing bad things. And a maximum, they have to put something at the bottom here, otherwise you'd be scrolling forever. So they set it to 15, but you can type in any number you want here to figure out what it is that you want to have here. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, guys. Maria loves it. Woohoo! Excellent. Okay, Mary wants to know, if we move the entry and exits to more logical orders, then we don't need to have ties. Correct. If I was moving the exit down here to the bottom, and when I set this next one up, I move my start to that bottom point here, you don't need to have a tie because you're not going to trim that. That doesn't need to have a locking stitch there. If I were to do that for all the 5 of them, my only bow tie would have one at the very first one and then one at the very last one, the running stitch of the last one. That's where my 2 bow ties were doing. So as I'm listening to my machine stitch, it's going to go lock, 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 sketch, 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 run to the bean stitch, then do this one, then do this one. It's going to keep all nice, evenly stitching. I love to hear my machine run at full power, even if it's only 600 stitches per minute, because I do have machines that run slow. They're older machines, and that's all they do is 600 stitches. So I like to hear them go as fast as they can. You know, just because our machine can go fast, the way that you make it keep going fast is by using less jumps, less tie-offs, logical stitching order, not having to jump all over the place, running travel stitches. I showed putting travel stitches in the last, the one I did the other day. I do that in a lot of videos because traveling stitches are just something that I put in. And a travel is simply a single running stitch, an object that goes from left to right or right to left or from point A to point B. Point A to point B. Lost my train of thought because I'm watching comments. This is what happens. Travel stitch goes, you have a section 1 that has a stitch and section 2 that has a stitch. Same color. Travel stitch, the only thing is that it gets from point A to point B as a single run with a semi-longy-ish stitch length. Nothing crazy, single run stitch, so that it connects the ending point and the starting point. And you make sure that it just goes underneath stitches that are going to be covering it up afterwards. So that's what travel stitch is. Sue wants to know if I'm going to do a live applique start to finish. Well, there's a great video already on the YouTube on Sunbonnet Sue, how to do applique start to finish. Mary says, I like that and would prefer not to have to tie off everywhere. Exactly. I mean, sometimes you've downloaded designs or you've gotten them from people that digitize and they're using automatic settings, and some software makes it does tie offs. Okay. That's their default. That you have to do tie offs. Our software is not doing tie-offs because if you think about it, I have a design, and I don't have the sample here, but it's a butterfly satin stitch design, one color, and it has 186 objects, and it has a tie-off at the beginning and a tie-off at the end. There's none in the middle. So if our software tied off at every single object, that would be so much work for me. So and that's who this software, even though it's inexpensive, it's budget friendly, it is so flippin' powerful that you can learn excellent digitizing practices at level 1 so that when you grow into level 2 or level 3, or even if you just stay at level 1, you're creating efficient designs that stitch beautifully. And this is all because of our human mind, okay? We are artists. Okay, so you gotta let your mind, you're smarter than the software. The software's a flippin' hammer, okay? The hammer, when you, It's not the one that does the great construction. The artist, the carpenter, the guy behind the hammer is the one that does the work. Okay. Chris, will you be showing how to remove a hole in a knockdown? I did that earlier. So when you rewatch the video, I showed how to edit your knockdown by removing the stitches, lassoing, and hit the delete key. Okay, I didn't realize there was a lasso to remove an essay. You remove stitches or the knockdown with this. Okay, well, let me go back and do this again because obviously that wasn't, let's go. Delete the underlay. Okay, utility, add knockdown stitching. Okay, this was created in Enthusiast. Now, there's a trick I have a live video on the Embroidery group on how to use a period to get rid of this hole. But since we have StitchArtist, that's what this class is about, this episode. If I want to get rid of this hole, this is just basically an object. So while my object is selected, I have to make sure that I am in StitchArtist. My object is selected. I can select with my lasso these extra guys, hit the delete key, and it reshapes my underlay. So that is what I meant. So when you say there's a lasso in StitchArtist, yes, there's a lasso that works on objects in StitchArtist, or objects are in StitchArtist. Excuse me. Enthusiast creates an underlay object. Okay, that it's an automatic function, so someone that doesn't have StitchArtist doesn't have that power. But you have StitchArtist because you're watching this, or you're thinking about getting StitchArtist, or you're watching this. And if you have StitchArtist and Enthusiast to reshape this guy, get rid of that hole that was there, you just have to make sure you're in create mode. Make sure that your object is selected. And I know my underlay object is selected is because I have nodes on it. So when I click on it, I have nodes. So when I left click, drag around, have my stitches selected, and hit the delete key. That removes it. So a closed, she just tried this and has left stitches. You need to practice mine as a closed circle. Okay, well that's a different type of knockdown. Man, you guys are making me work. Okay, let me do this a new thing. All right, let me go make a big letter A. Only one letter A. Let's see. Boom. I didn't practice this, guys. We want a capital letter O. Oh, boom. All right. Let's make it big. All right. Kim got it. Woohoo. All right. Let's see. Come on. Please work. Please work. Please work. Utility, add knockdown stitching. No. Well, so how did you get a hole? I tried that as stitches left. Need to practice. Mine is a closed circle. That's a closed circle. I'm not sure what it's doing. But if you wanted to put a hole in this underlay, okay, first of all, you have to go into create mode, and I'm going to change it to a line object so I'm not making a mess. And now make sure you draw your lovely shape here. Right click to end, close the shape. And now you have to combine these two together. Create, outline, combine holes, and now put your fill stitch in, and now you have a hole. Would I consider making a book? I have a book started. The problem with writing a book is that things change. And I don't know if Brian's watching this video, but, he adds new features to the program, and my videos get outdated. I can't even imagine rewriting the book again. So, I'll put it on the list. How's that? That's how to add a hole to the underlay, but you don't usually get holes unless it's a really big thing that has a hole in it. But if this is what your underlay looks like and you want to get rid of this hole, first of all, okay, so we have an object that has a hole in it. Now, the way I created it was by adding a hole. So the way to get rid of this hole is by going to the create menu, outline, and say separate holes. And now you can get rid of the hole. and you have a solid piece. That's usually what people want to do, is they have to get rid of the holes because it just makes a mess. But hopefully that explains things. All right, close tab, don't save. Some of you have taken classes from me before, and this is a practice that you should get used to. Do you see each one of these windows that I have open? And one is called Untitled 2. And the next one's called Untitled 3. And the third one's called Funky Bird. And I just closed Untitled 4. Each one of those tabs has to save 25 of your steps in memory. Okay? So it's juggling the last 25 things you did in each one of them. Now on a Mac, it's not usually as horrible of a situation as on Windows, because it just seems that Windows has holes in their operating system and they don't like you to have a lot of memory. So make sure that once you're done doing something in one of these tabs, that you save your work, and you should always save your work often, because if this crashed right now, you better be happy that you didn't save it, because there's nothing to do with it. But close your windows. Because if you have more than 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, the most I saw open was like 34. And I said, you don't even know what you worked on. She's like, oh, well, that was 4 weeks ago. And they're like, well, the software's trying to juggle 25 things. And you're wondering why it's so slow. So close those little tabs that's up there on the top. Okay? Chris, mine was a big heart and wanted to only have the flowers in the heart shape. So that's perfect. Glad. Excellent. Sounds like you figured out what you needed to do. It's usually adding a hole, deleting extra nodes, or removing the hole so that you don't have the big blob. All right, I was showing the level 1 function of the fill stitch. Let me go in here and we're going to go, let me select both of these guys here. Oh, let me just put it back here. We're going to make this, I'm going to go into level 2. 1, 2. Have my object, apply my fill stitch, set my start on one side, my stop on the other side, set my angle. My fill stitch property in level 2 has a couple different options. First of all, it still has the travel edge, which we had in level 1, but it also has the option of doing a curved fill. Now this is, you've probably seen this on some embroidery designs where it's a sketch fill that's curved, that kind of gives a little bit more dimension, a little more interest than just the straight fill. So that's one kind of funky thing. And you can also, remember this is set to 15, but if you wanted to set it to a higher number, you can do that as well. Of course, the further this is apart, there's nothing to connect it, so you really want to have that nice running stitch around. So that's just one of the options. So there's fill, and let me change it back to, whoopsie. We want to do it 15 points so we can actually see it. That's kind of pretty. Now let's go down here. So that's a, whoopsie, level 2 has that curved fill. And the way that the curved fill works, for those of you that have that option in level StitchArtist 2, instead of just having the barbells on the sides, you now have a node in the middle, and you can actually add more nodes to it, but it might not be a good option for the shape that you have. But think of, that is ugly. We are all going to admit that I just created an ugly flower. But think of if you have a big blob along the bottom of river or a pond, and you want to add a fill that's got some texture going on and some fun stuff going on. You can't go too crazy with this, because depending on the size of your shape, you'll create ugly stitches. But this one actually can look kind of nice all by itself. Curving it. That's what that line does. All right, I did it too much. You play too much of the software, you make too big of a mess. Okay, so that's the curve fill. This one down here, let me go and hit fill. Fill, properties, not curve, but we need to go and see, you get really good at setting this. I could just copy and paste replace, but if you find that you're playing in the software, whoopsie, what do I want to do? Put this guy on this side and this guy on this side. When you find that you're playing in the software, repeating things, it becomes faster. So Be patient with yourself. You have to play. You must learn. That's the way it goes. The other option for in level 2 allows you to have here at the bottom. In level 1, you have your pull compensation, and to the right of it in level 2, you have the ability to add a gradient. Now, when you choose that gradient button, this is how I did the gradient option. I don't know if this is going to show up in this little tiny screen here at the bottom. You see my letters, they kind of look like sea glass. That is how I did these as a gradient. Gradient can go increasing or decreasing. Now the key point to this is that you want to have, this is a gradient fill. So and this is really small. Our little guy here is not even 1/2 inch, so putting a gradient on this doesn't make much sense. So when you have a high number on it, you might not see your gradient as obvious as you want it to. But this is say we want this to be increasing. There's also the option of going to a decreasing, which starts on the other side, which is a little more interesting here. Or you can go from open center or open ends. But again, those don't, on such a small shape, that's not really going to make that much of a difference. But the density here, this 8.4, that is what this density is here in the center of the open. Let me go back to the increasing one so it's a little better. Decreasing, sorry. Okay, so the density that's over here is set by this number. So this is 2. Density at the outer edge is 8.4. So that's where the numbers come in. So if you want this to be tighter here at the at this little center point, or hopefully you're doing this on a bigger one, because to do a gradient on something that's only 1/2 inch is kind of silly. But I'm just showing you the option because I don't feel like drawing another blob. Gradients, okay? One number controls the outside density, one number controls the tighter density. Type that. Make sense, guys? Now, level 2, you can actually do a curved density with that gradient also. You can get some really cool effects just by changing the gradients on this. Where was I going with this after that? No clue. Completely lost myself. Nancy says, ooh, gradients. Mary says her computer's gone berserk, jumping it back and forth between windows. Yes, the tabs here at the top. You guess, yeah, gotta keep them under control here. Okay, waiting to see if another question pops up here. Hopefully you guys can all see how the sketch fills can relate to the underlay, knockdown stitching, okay? Because sketch basically has the same properties. There's a light density and there's no underlay stitching to a sketch design or to knockdown stitching. So that's why I kind of consider them to be the same type of thing. Now, one other option when you are doing your knockdown stitching, some people like to use the motif fills. And once you have your shape, I mean, this is going to be a bad option for this. I apologize for whatever bad thing happens here. But when there's so many nodes in this option, there's too much complication here. Trying to do a motif on this, I apologize ahead of time for what's going to happen. Because, ooh, well, that actually isn't too bad. Wow. Lisa's impressed. I added a motif fill to our crazy knockdown stitching, and look at that. That's actually not too bad. Decorative type, decorative stitching can be used as knockdown stitching. My issue with using motif fills as knockdown stitching is, and this actually is not a horrible example. Complete luck here. Oh, except you got some wonky stitches here. The point I was trying to make is that sometimes, depending on the motif that you choose, you will have, that's this one. Let me try and find a bad motif. Yeah, that's kind of bad-ish. Do you see how it's nice and outlined on this side? But when you get to this side here, when you have a motif, it's not pretty. So, you may want to do a running stitch outline on this to kind of keep it all intact, make it more of a decoration type thing, because right now the motif isn't going to finish it off pretty using this object type here. Okay, Barbara says she likes how I explained this. SA does not have the ability to curve and do gradients. That's a level 2 function. So gradients and curving fills is not in level 1. That's a level 2 function. And where this design is from. This little guy here, I'm working on a class, an online class for enthusiasts, so I digitized him, and that's where he's going to be. So it's a work in progress. You know, that book. I also have a class that's coming out on enthusiasts and all the different things you can do with it, stitch editing, stuff like that. And that's where this bird is coming from. Has anyone else crashed the program using motifs? Well, Pat, if you've crashed the program, you need to contact tech support because they're the only ones that can help you solve the problem. I've had like 15 motifs to a design and done bad things in classes and haven't crashed. I usually try not to do bad things, but I haven't crashed using the motifs. So there could be something funky going on. Usually this is a bad shape. And when I say bad shape, it's complicated. This has like, every time you have a node, you have a directional change. And you're giving the software information that it needs to process because you're telling it that at this point, something is going to happen. So when you have 5,000 of these little points going around there and you're trying to apply a motif fill that's going, depending on the number of nodes and loopy things and all sorts of other weird stuff, that could be a problem. Sharon said she had the problem and support fixed it. See, Sharon contacted support. So Pat, their tech support would love to help you. It's it's embrilliance.com and I think it's /contact us. But you go, embrilliance.com is the website. Click on contact us. Most important things that you can ever give to tech support. The program. So it's Embrilliance. Yes, we know that. Everyone here is running Embrilliance. So if you're running with StitchArtist Level 1, Level 2, let them know. She's had issues if you left Embrilliance running for a month or so. Well, Melissa, we're sisters. I mean, yeah, I pushed it. I don't close my programs very often. But before I get back to tech support, make sure you tell them what program you have, what level, what operating system. Are you running Mac or Windows? If you're running Windows 7, Windows 10, Mac, what operate OS X, because there's so many different flavors of this going on. Next, go to your About window. That's either under the Help About on Windows or Embrilliance, About Embrilliance, and tell them the version number listed there as well as the date. Because you may have downloaded an update and then they replace that update with a newer update and it's still the same number, so the date is what's important. So the version number, the date, and then if you have the BE file, if you have the file that sends the crash, send that to them. They don't need stitch files. Sending them PES, DST, they usually don't need those. But if you send them the BE working file with the version of your operating system, the version of the program name, and the steps that you take, they can usually try and recreate the problem step by step by step. So, anyway, that's how you get in touch with support. So the fixed charge problem, Melissa, you're my twin here, leaving the program open for a month or so. She also wants to know, yes, there are still spots available in my Colorado classes, and they're filling up. I teach hands-on classes for those of you that are new to this little webby type thing. They're in person. I do 3-day seminars, as well as I attach myself usually to before one of the trade shows that are going on, such as Applique Getaway, which is in June in Texas, or coming up, the Everything Embroidery Market. Now, I've been promoting the Everything Embroidery Market in Kentucky. There's only a few spots left in those, the Essentials and the Stitch Artist class. So if you're interested in going to the Kentucky event, make sure you get in touch with them, because we had people waiting outside hoping that someone wouldn't show up. And I don't want to have to, that's not nice. That's not fun to be hanging outside. So get your seat, because they only sell enough tickets for the class itself. Unless people don't show up, and that always happens, but hopefully it doesn't. Other events I'm doing, I have the one in Houston, which is at the end of May, and Stitch Level days 1 and 2 are completely sold out. I have a waiting list for those as well. And where else am I doing? Day 3 is completely open for Stitch Artists in Houston. Denver, I have spots open in days 1 and 2 and 3 as well. Day 1 and 2 are now starting to get more filled than day 3. Day 3 is just Stitch Artists. For those that just want to learn how to use the program, you need to come to day 3 because that's all we do. Portland, Oregon. I was in Portland last year and that was a complete bust. I didn't make any, I ended up paying to teach people there. That's how poorly it was attended. So I'm not sure I'm going to come back to Portland again anytime soon. Is it a range of ages at the training? Go West, young woman. Well, I've been to Portland, I've been to Lake Tahoe, and neither one of them were well attended. Denver's actually getting people to sign up for. The last time I tried Denver, no one signed up. And I am independent, just so that you guys know. And I do not work for Embrilliance, although I do communicate with them, and I teach their software. I am a dealer for them when I do trade shows. I have an affiliate link, so I am tied closely with Embrilliance, but when I do these events, they're a Lisa Shaw event, so I have to pay for the room, the electricity, everything all up front, and hope people come. So I've taken a bath at Tahoe and to Portland, so I'm not doing that again. Chicago, Caribbean. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? I've done Caribbean cruises. I haven't seen any of our cruisers up here. But we did an event on a cruise ship, and that was a lot of fun. Caribbean. The key for me doing this, first of all, I do have other jobs, and I've already been given another task of writing a book. I've got to finish my enthusiast class. There's only so many hours in my day, guys. Trying to communicate with hotels and get them to, I need a room that can take up to 24 to 30 people, because most of them require some sort of catering or outside lunches. Is really nice, but not everyone allows that. And spots available. So I've got more rejections from the Chicago area. I am trying that. California, we can't afford to go there. I'd have to teach 100 people in order to make minimum wage there. I do a survey of places. I've done the survey. I had 32 people signed up to come to Portland. Not one of them showed up. I had 40 people saying they're going to Lake Tahoe. None of them showed up. And the funny thing was, my first one I did in Shreveport. That was historical because I had a list of, the reason I chose Shreveport was because I had this huge list. I think it was like 56 people that said, if you come within 3 hours of Shreveport, I'm there. We had 60 people come. It was a huge event. I did it with Dawn Meek from Creative Appliques. So we had 60 people at this event. Not one of those people that said, I'm going to be there, came to that event. So surveys, I'm not holding any water with them because I can only afford to do so many things. Chris asked about Australia. I still need to see, my list is growing. I am working with Gary Walker from A Kid in His Sewing Products. He's the one that sponsors me to come to Australia because I am not a dealer. He has to bring me in to teach. So I will be there. Theoretically, that's what we're doing tentative things right now, but in November of this year. So I need to, I guess I don't know what time it is in Australia right now. So I need to get with him because I will be doing the in-person class there. And these live things are great. However, I do understand the value of doing the hands-on in person. I can't be everywhere though, so these are going to be supplemental. But to see the people take off from where they were when they first come to the class. I had this one lady, and I'm not going to say her name, but she was at one of my first events, and she was almost in tears before, saying she didn't think she was smart enough to come to the class. She just didn't want to take it. And now, holy smokes, she is up and running and doing crazy things. And it's because she got to do the hands-on class. She got to meet her tribe. So, and do things there. As she says 11 o'clock, and my alarm did go off. This is supposed to end at 7. And I'm still going. 11 o'clock in Brisbane. Well, and it's Tuesday. Right? It's Tuesday, so 11 o'clock. I got to give Gary a call. Do you don't you sell registrations ahead of time? Vivian, yes, I do. But if as soon as I book a hotel, they want a deposit of like $5,000. You know, it depends. But that was the deposit for the Portland place was $5,000. So it was like, you know, when no one showed up. And I can only advertise so much because that's on the list. So when I set up these events, I have to advertise the events. I have to write that book that someone wants. I've got to do the enthusiast class and get that published. Plus I've got to do my own things. You know, I do have a regular job. Do people have to take them into machines to class? Oh, I don't teach you how to use machines. I used to do that many, many moons ago. And when everyone has a different machine, and what's wonderful about the Embroidery software is that it works with all the machines. All you need is a way to get the design from the computer to your embroidery machine. I teach the software part, learning how to use your machine and watching that needle go up and down. I get taking classes and doing projects, but if we have 5 hours for a class, we would spend 30 minutes in the software and 4.5 hours as watch the machine go up and down. Not my idea of a good time. So I teach the software. When I teach the hands-on classes, software, because you don't have to save anything. I'm teaching you techniques so that you can go home and play and then stitch and then have a good grand time. Okay, 6:10 here. I'm not sure where Maria is, but it's only 6:10 there. Don't write a book. Just do this. Well, I'm glad I can do this because a couple months ago, there was no way I could do a live video showing my screen. All I could do is this talking thing. I couldn't do the software splitting thing. So this is kind of nice. Yes, I did have someone suggest that I do some sort of like subscription where you can take the classes and I answer questions, kind of like I did classes at Craftsy. Okay, Craftsy is now Blueprint, and they've switched me to they don't do software classes for me anymore. So this is not my regular job. No, it's not my regular job. I have another job. Yes, I could do this, and maybe if I could do a subscription type thing where I taught online classes and did that sort of like the Craftsy class type thing where I can get paid for it. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But you know, I have people, not enough hours in my day. So can only do so many things. All right. I think, what time is it now? It's 7:15. I've been chatting away for well over an hour. Hopefully you guys got something out of customizing your knockdown stitching using StitchArtist, creating your own sketch designs. Oh, hugs to you, Margie. How about a book with hands-on exercises? The way software changes is still relevant. Sure. I'm going to add this all to the list. You guys are to keep me working till I'm 90. You know, I've been doing this stuff for 25 years. I can't say ladies, because there's a couple gentlemen that I saw pop on here. So, but I've been doing this for a long time. So, you know, I still haven't finished everything on my to-do list. I'm working on it. Nikki, PPQ. Oh, I'm glad I'm going to see you at the Applique Getaway. For those of you in Texas, make sure you come by the Applique Getaway. It's in the Dallas Irving area. They've moved to a fabulous hotel. The other location was really nice, but this one is all on one level. So no stairs, no waiting for elevators or anything. And the hotel prices have dropped significantly. So I have the pre-show classes. They're almost full. The essentials class, I think I have 10 spots left in that one. So if you're interested in coming, that one needs to, you need to register soon. StitchArtist, people are afraid of digitizing. Hopefully I've made it, easy enough that you guys can understand and do this stuff on your own. All right, guys, I'm going to say goodnight and go walk my dogs, and hopefully you guys have a great rest of the week. Watch my Facebook page, and my Facebook page is So Bubbles. So you see Bubbles Menagerie. I will be advertising the next live session. I think it's going to be on Thursday, and it will have something to do with one of the customizing programs. Take care and see you later. That didn't work.